What's going on? My name is Amy. Welcome to the channel. Today's video, I'm going to attempt to disseminate trading psychology that I've learned over this 1 year of trading. I count November 2024 as when I got back into the idea of the stock market and being passionate about it again after many years hiatus. And I started swing trading last November, and everybody seemed to be doing this because the market was going nuts, right? And December was when I count like my official day trading journey, which you can follow along from videos on this channel of me documenting since about month 3. Now, I've had some sporadic content posting the last couple months intentionally because I felt like I needed to stop being on social and talking about it in order to improve my game. And for the first time in many months, October was a profitable month for me. Who's to say going forward, I'm expecting the best as always. That's just my way of living life. But I'm not going to come on here and say, oh my gosh, I'm like doing amazing because I've had 1 month of profit. I will say some things though in this video related to trading psychology and relating to mindset, the way we frame things in our life, the way one person can say, I'm doing great, and the same situation for another person, they think they're doing horrible at trading, right? So I'm just going to try to put together some thoughts that I've had since I've started trading about a year ago, and just maybe you can glean something from this. If you're just starting on your journey and you're just getting into trading, I feel you. I remember starting, and let's go back to the beginning for a moment. In the beginning, I put a lot of time, effort, and money in the sense of books into learning how to trade, because it was very important for me as a serious student. This is how I've always been throughout my entire life, is when I want to learn about something, I go get a book on it. When I was a kid and I couldn't afford books, I would go to the library, and now I just go on Amazon, I buy books, and I think there's been some that have really helped me just try to understand what is trading, how does it work, how do you actually make money, how do you lose money, how do you handle the psychology of that. Some of the ones that stand out to me just off the top of my head, Stan Weinstein's How to Profit in Bull or Bear Markets, I believe is the full title, and Best Loser Wins by Tom Hugard. I just started reading Trade Mindfully. I'm blanking on the author on this one. It's one that Ross Cameron recommended on one of his videos about his favorite trading books. So I picked it up. That one is very, very psychology based. It's going to take some serious thinking as you read. I'll read a page and be like, I gotta put this book down. It's too much. Like it's for the very intellectual kind of person. And I'm just taking my time reading it. But it's full of gold nuggets, so I definitely recommend it. And then the other one that's helped me, The Mental Game of Trading. Jared Tendler, I think, is the guy. And definitely got to give a shout out to Mike Bellafiore for The Playbook and One Good Trade. Those two books really gave me insights as to what being a prop firm trader was on a day-to-day, this is your life, this is how you trade. And it's full of just really good ideas and different ways of trading. Now, that being said, I'm one of the people that sometimes I go a little too all in when I learn. And in the beginning, mistakes made were trying to listen to too many different people and trying to follow too many different people. I kind of settled initially, I guess about month 3 on Ross Cameron and tried to follow his way of trading. And I did that for many months and felt like, what's wrong with me? Why is this not clicking? Why am I not getting it? Why am I still having fear of getting into trades? Why am I cutting my trades too short? What am I doing? All of these emotional things, mental things going on. And some of my trades were extremely short, very, very quick scalp trades like he does, where you might be in for 30 seconds, 1 minute. And my pivot point, I feel like, was end of October. And I've talked about this on my channel here before under the trading update video, where I went in person to visit with my success mentor, and I had a discussion, and it was kind of like I had this aha moment of like, why am I making this so hard on myself? Why do I feel like I have to stick to this one way of trading because I've been doing it so long? But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I thought I was doing different things. I thought I was trying different things. And yet ultimately it was like, no, you're just kind of running around in circles, Amy. And you really have to just open your mind and your eyes to potentially trading a different way or stopping. That was also a thought in my head at that point. Like month 10, you're like, okay, I feel like I should have had some progress by now, right? And it was right after that, in-person meeting and having this aha cognition that I saw what was staring me in the face. And it was a new way of trading, a way of holding trades longer, a way of trading, not necessarily less volatile things, but large cap related, stocks, ETFs. And I said, you know what, this just suits my style better because I'm tired of being stressed out. I'm tired of being worried. Even just starting the morning where you're not even in a trade, you're already like freaking out of like, how's this day going to go? And then you're trying to tell yourself as you're in the trade, like it's good, whatever. And then as you're out of the trade, maybe it didn't go your way and you're like over analyzing it the entire day. I'm like, no, I don't want this anymore. Right. So let's move into, what is kind of working better for me now? Like, of course, holding trades longer, seeking to gain profit based on that. But also what's been interesting is my complete shift of attitude in regards to holding on when you're in a drawdown. And before, if I was in a drawdown, I would totally panic sell, get the heck out. If I was trading the scalp strategy like Ross Cameron, I was, just really beating myself up, thinking that I had to be better, that I had to get in, at a better time, get out at a better time, manage my emotions and all this sort of thing. And now the shift is interesting to me because I could be down so much more in terms of dollars in a swing trade, and it doesn't affect me like it did when I was doing these scalp day trades. And I think part of that is because I have faith in the underlying thing I'm investing, quote unquote, in, for it to come back to a new level, come back with momentum, come back with strength. And primarily I've been trading the NASDAQ as an ETF. And though it is volatile, it's risky, it can, you definitely have these flushes and things like that where you're caught unawares. But overall, I mean, I just still feel like it's bullish. So that's helped me a lot just in terms of what do you trade and do you have confidence in it? Do you not have confidence in it? Because before trading like Ross, I did not have confidence in anything I traded in the sense that it would go up long term because these were small cap stocks, they were bumping up on news. A lot of times it was crypto related, which as y'all know, you just don't know which way that's going to go one day to the next. And some of it was pump and dump. Actually, most of it, let's just be honest here, most of it pump and dump. And you could think it's going one way and then all of a sudden, something that's up like 125% on the day could end up being only up 40% or 20% or completely go the other way and be back to where it was or worse than that, when the news shot it up initially. So I think having confidence in what I trade now is like definitely a shift for the psychology part of it. The other thing I've noticed is when you're in a trade and you are going in with the intent like, hey, I want to hit this take profit level. If it happens today, awesome. Like totally unexpected, that would be great. However, if it doesn't, I'm okay holding for days. And having this sort of relief of when your take profit might get hit is kind of really helped me to be more relaxed about trading. And so in that regard, it's like, okay, I'm willing to sit through some drawdowns. I'm willing to wait for this thing to push itself out of consolidation. I'm willing to go for higher reward because of this. I look at some of these trades I've been in, and I'm like, most of the time I think I'm setting my take profits in a realistic level. However, there have been other times where I'm like, I really should have held on, not only because the market continued to go up later, but also just to make that trade and its risk worth it. I'm trading with higher size, more shares than I ever did with day trading, jumping in and out of scalp trades. And so now it's kind of making me think a little differently, like, okay, what's the reward here? Whereas before it was like, well, I'll take whatever the market can give me, because with small caps and scalp, you just don't know. You don't know what you're going to get. And what I like about trading the way I'm doing now, and by the way, I've been following Trades by Sai, which I've talked about before, but I like his way of trading where you're going off of previous structure and you kind of have something to go by. Whereas the fly-by-night small cap stocks, you have nothing to go by. You have no previous supports. You have no previous resistance. If you did have previous support, it's like, okay, it's way down there. I don't think I'm going to hold, all the way down to that. It's definitely like you're walking out over a cliff. And I think I've had some feedback on this channel, and thank you for commenting if you have about this, where you came to the realization that I did, or you're starting to, that maybe trading like Ross does is not for you. And I don't think it's for most people, honestly. I don't know what occurred in his brain that allows him to shift and go trade like he does, where you could just be to the moon one day and to the depths of nowhere the next day. It's so crazy, the situations that he puts himself into, and he does it day in and day out. And another thing I realized too was it was way better for my mental sanity and health and happiness to focus on right now one good trade a week. That seems like so little in comparison to me previously trading 4 or 5 days a week and taking anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 trades a day. Like, that alone alleviated stress tremendously, because now it's like you're in a trade and you're like, okay, maybe it's working out, maybe it's not, but I'm not going to stress about it because it's one trade. Like, there'll be more. Versus I think I used to put actually more pressure on myself for all those little trades. And I also noticed that it was like, this was a pattern I realized by documenting my trades, by the way, was that weeks I traded less, I either didn't have as much loss or I actually made a profit. So that kind of said to me too, like, this other way of trading for me is better, just better overall. Because I think when I open myself up to too much risk, it actually goes against me. Instead of giving me more opportunities, my mentality shrinks into preserve mode, survival mode. And I think that's one of the biggest psychology things about trading, is that, like, when you get into a trade, especially if you are trading like Ross does, and there's this thing that gets triggered. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I don't care how long you've been trading. I'm sure you felt this in the beginning, where a survival instinct actually kicks in. And it's like fight or flight response. Now, granted, over time, pros, they can alleviate this. They can, do different things to calm down their mental state and whatnot. But I think it's one of the biggest challenges initially, if not forever, for traders, is to go against what is pretty much hardwired into us as a human being. I've talked about this, I think, on the channel before, and it came to me like recently that this was one of the biggest, hardest things to overcome, was like, how do you get over this instinctual, caveman-like instinct that kicks in when you're in a trade. And even if you're winning the trade, you're going to feel like, oh, I got to grab the money and run. Or if you are losing in the trade, you're panicking because you also feel like that something is at stake here bigger than money. Because I kind of had to think about this really deeply and say, is it that I'm worried about the money? That's really what's going on? Because I had this trading account with money in it that I did not need whatsoever. I mean, if it went under tomorrow and I had $0, I'm not going to be on the street, right? And I said, well, maybe it's like a just a thing where I'm trying to preserve the money. I'm trying to keep the money, you know. And I was like, no, that's still not it. Because, you know, I'm okay having losses and drawdowns and things. But there was something I realized that I was capping myself all the time about actually getting a good play, you know, a good trade that made a good profit. And it felt like any little gains I made would get wiped out with one stupid trade and the whole month would be a loss. And you guys have seen these videos on my channel before where like at the end of the month there was like some crazy trade or the beginning of the month where I lost more than I expected, and I felt that I had to trade smaller after that in order to protect, which puts you in a bad position because then first of all, you're not risking what you were risking before. You're not giving yourself a chance to gain back what you lost and maybe turn it around and be profitable for the month. And I kept having that cycle repeated. That's why I realized, you know, it's better for me to not trade so much because it opens me up to more chances of this actually happening again. And so it's been an interesting journey overall. Something I've noticed too with trading and holding trades is the interesting psychological thoughts that go on in my head as sometimes I'm looking at the trade. I've got my trade station open on my phone. By the way, that's another thing that changed for me was I stopped trading on the computer. I started trading on my phone. And I'll use the computer to open up TradingView, look at charts, maybe draw a box or something for where I'd like to get in if there's a breakout or something. But for the most part, I've been trading from my phone, and I've had this like sort of detached view sometimes where I'll look at top of the hour, bottom of the hour, and it's very interesting what happens in terms of price action. And you can see this almost at every hour throughout the day as far as the New York session. And you'll see it, of course, very much so after the first hour of the stock market being open. But what I noticed while holding trades throughout the day was there was these other moments of volatility. And you could literally see where institutional order flow would kick in. Because all of a sudden, you know, price might be at a certain level, and then you'd see this big liquidity flush. And it would occur within 5 to 10 to 15 minute time frames around those like hourly marks. So like, for example, you know, 11 a.m., 12 p.m., 12:30. Like there's these times of the day where it must be the algorithm, the bots that are kicking things through because it's like, okay, where's price at now? Do we buy or sell? Boom, you know, and something will happen. And that has been an interesting play because it's like once I realized that this was a pattern, it kind of changed the way I was swing trading because I'm like, oh, okay. You know, before I might be panicking like, oh, shoot, I didn't expect price to drop so much. I'm trying to debate, do I stay in my trade? And as I'm like hemming and hawing over what's going on with the price action, especially if it's a big drop, then all of a sudden you start to see the buying step in and you're like, oh, this is what the institutions are doing, right? They're flushing out people. They're going through their stop losses. They're creating liquidity in the market so that they can then come in, buy on the cheap, and shoot it back up. And I've seen this time and time again, especially trading the NASDAQ, which I trade TQQQ a lot lately. And it's interesting. It's like a fake out, both coming and going. You know, sometimes it's going up and doing that kind of thing, and sometimes it's going down doing that thing. And it's like really fascinating to me. It's really created like a new perspective on trading in general and how the markets actually move and what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm not saying I know exactly who's doing this or what's going on, and people say, oh, there's no stop loss hunting and stuff like that. Well, they may not see your exact number of a stop loss, but they know where most people are putting their stop losses. It's in obvious places. So it's not that hard to hunt your stop loss, okay? As most people aren't thinking, let me, like, here's a level of support. Most people are putting it either at that support or just under, whereas the people that actually want to stay in that trade either A, don't use a stop loss, or B, they put it so far below that it's not going to hit it unless the whole structure of the trade has changed, right? So anyways, not saying I know everything about it, but just something I've observed. So all of this being said, I'm just kind of spewing some things I've learned with all this psychology. It is so interesting what my mind will go through, and I can like hear the thoughts running around as I'm like looking at my phone, watching price action, and I'm like, ooh, like what's happening? And before it used to make me panic a little, and now it's like, oh, interesting. I see what's going on here, and now I'm starting to understand it a little bit. And it's kept me in trades, thankfully, to watch these patterns play out, because I know before the old Amy would have been like, sell, get out, protect your capital. And then, you look back on some of these large caps and you're like, dang it, if I only held, this would have been up by now, if I just held through all that stuff. So it's been an interesting shift. So I've been trading this new way for about 6-7 weeks now. And I just feel differently about trading, which is awesome. So yeah, if you've kind of been struggling, maybe just consider, I'm not saying trade like I do now, but consider shifting, consider watching somebody else's videos, consider learning from someone else. Because if you feel like, you know who you are as a person and what kind of tolerance you have for, the type of trading you like to do, the risk you like to take. I think for me, one of the realizations too was I really just don't have the intention to sit at the computer for 2-3 hours a day watching the market. I like to watch it, analyze it, go in and look at charts, look at things, look at structure, price action, set my little boxes sometimes. And to do that like in an hour, and then find my spot, set my alerts. I set a bunch of alerts for my phone so that I know when price is entering those zones I look to buy into or sell out of. And that's just been so much better for my personality and the way I like to structure my day. I've been an entrepreneur for a while, and I didn't want to create a job for myself, because that was the whole point of being an entrepreneur, was that you didn't have to create a job for yourself, right? That you could do things and you could have freedom and time and all that sort of thing. So if any of this has helped you, let me know. I'm trying to think if there's psychology-wise. Oh, another thing. Let's talk about this for a moment. The realization over this last year that trading will reveal to you who you really are. And by that, I mean strengths, weaknesses, imperfections, bad habits, good habits, how you deal with emotions, how you deal with triggers, how do you reset when things go your way or don't go your way, or how can you possibly not be affected by things going your way or not going your way. I think ultimately something I came to another realization of with trading was that I should feel the exact same internally whether I am up in a trade or I am down in a trade. I should not let a P&L dictate, and I mean open or closed, by the way. I should not let that P&L dictate my emotional state and how I feel, and also it should not dictate who you are as a person. This is one of the biggest challenges, was taking on trades as a personal reflection of who I am. Because in the beginning, I was very much tied to the outcome, and I felt that the outcome meant Amy is either good at trading or Amy is bad at trading. And one of those two things meant I could be happy or I could be upset. And I'm like, why am I letting this affect my own beliefs about myself and how I feel and, my happiness? And so there was times where I'd step away from trading for a few days and I would just let me reset. Let me just not worry about it. Let me look at things objectively while I'm not in any trades and stuff like that. And I think that that's really important if you feel like you're getting off track, if you feel like you care too much about trading or about a specific trade, shut your phone off, stop looking at charts for a day, go to the beach, go to the mountains, get the heck out, like go in nature. That's one of the things that's really helped me too, is to get out, go in nature somewhere. If you don't have a cell phone signal, that's even better. Because I went hiking recently and I was like, some mountain had no signal, and I was like, this is great. I have no idea what price action is doing, and it was very freeing. So all that being said, 1 year of trading. Am I where I thought I would be? I think a year ago, I set some pretty unrealistic expectations based on the kind of person I was. And I say was because I really have changed in a year. I was always like thinking high performance, gotta excel, gotta be the best, I can be, that kind of thing. And I would put enormous amounts of pressure on myself. And what did that do for my trading? It made it suck. It made it worse instead of making it better. So I feel that maybe if you're not where you want to be, release that. Let it go. Just give yourself grace, love yourself, be thankful for where you are on your journey. And for me, I think it really, like month 10, like I almost feel like I'm going to get emotional. Month 10, I really started to feel like, like what is the deal? What's not clicking? Why isn't this clicking? What do I got to do here? Because I really felt frustrated. I really felt like, shoot, I don't even know. I don't even know where to go from here. I don't know what's next. I don't know how to make this better. I don't know how to stop fearing over, losing money or getting into trades or whatever. I mean, I really felt like a ship without a direction, going up the creek without a paddle, like just very lost. And then the pivot for me of, being able to talk to my mentor, and he's not into trading, by the way, but just very successful guy, and realizing that if you can change your thinking, you can change your life. Because previously I had been thinking all these horrible things. What's wrong with me? Why can't I get it? Why isn't this working? What am I doing wrong? I'm asking all the wrong questions too. And instead just saying, hey, look how far I've come. Look how much I've learned. Like even just what I've learned with trading has helped me so much to now look at the charts completely different and help me with investing. So that could be a whole other video, is what I've learned from investing this whole year. I liquidated my IRA last year and went all to cash when the market was coming down in December. And I spent this entire year like repositioning, reallocating, and like I'm still doing that. And so I've learned so much, but I'm so thankful for trading, because had I not dived deep into learning how to read charts, how to use indicators, which I don't use any anymore, by the way, but just learning about it, learning how it works, learning how to read candlesticks, learning how to read patterns, seeing the actual patterns on the chart. Like, oh my gosh, that was like, ooh, I can look at a chart and I can almost know what's going on. And I'm not saying I can predict, but I can kind of sense like, okay, this might happen based on these patterns. So I started to kind of look at all of this differently and say, wow, I've come so far. And, you listen to people on YouTube and stuff and they say, hey, I've been trading for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. And then they finally had a breakthrough, right? So here I was whining and complaining that I didn't have my breakthrough, and I'm like in month 10 and I'm like, crying about it. And then it's like, if you just stop worrying about the time, stop caring, then you put yourself at ease, and the resistance around what you want actually can diminish, and you can finally start to think clearly, see opportunities, right? And that was what was staring right in front of me. Was I was already watching Trades by Cy for, I don't know, a couple of weeks before I decided to trade like him. And I was watching because I liked his psychology. I liked his way of thinking. I liked his way of just being very relaxed about trading. He was just always seemed like, hey, even if he was down, it was like, oh, whatever, it's all good. And he just had this very grateful way of living. And he had this horrible life experiences that he overcame. And I was like, who am I to complain? I've never been homeless. I didn't grow up in a foster home or anything like that. So it really put things into perspective for me, especially then realizing, well, if this guy's really happy doing what he's doing, it seems relaxed, seems like he's enjoying trading, he's not sitting at the chart all day, maybe I should trade like him. So I'm glad I did. I'm glad, I kind of leaned into his way of trading, and I'm still learning a lot of lessons lately about trading, but it's nice to be and feel like you're in a different place. So hopefully you got some value out of this video. Trading is like I said earlier, it's a reflection of yourself. You really see yourself for who you are based on how you perform or not perform, or analyze the charts or however. But it's so much a mind game, right? It's so much psychological. If someone was to say put a percentage on it, I'd say the technicals is very important. You can't just say like you understand trading and never read or learn price action or charts or things like that. So I'd say there's a 10% of the technical side, and I'd say the other 90 is the mental. Because what are you going to do when you get in a trade and it's going your way? What are you going to do when it's not going your way? Though this is the many decisions you have to make as you do trades. And of course there's a million questions before that of like, where do I get in? Where's my take profit? Where's my stop? Where am I going to go if this happens? What am I going to do if this, news, FOMC, da, da, da. So there's so many things that go on up here. And I think I was like completely unprepared for that when I first got into trading a year ago. And I've really learned and value now what the mindset does for trading. And I think probably my biggest aha in the last like week, if not even weekend, is care, but not that much. Like you care and you want to do this thing and you want to make money and you want to create a better life for yourself and all that. And if you carry too much of that into the trade itself, then you end up not, a lot of times it won't play out in your favor because you're putting all that pressure on yourself. So I really tried to talk myself down when I feel like I'm caring too much. And you know what I mean? Like you're checking your phone constantly, like, ooh, did an alert go off? Like, what's my trade doing? Am I in profit? Am I in drawdown? Like, what's happening? And I said to myself over the weekend, like, Amy, just stop caring. Like, seriously, like, think almost like worst case scenario. Like, what if this happens? And make yourself not care. And I'm like, whew, like, okay, are you going to die? No. You lose some money. That's not the outcome, right? So even the worst case scenario, you lose money. Is it the end of the world? No. Okay. So sometimes you have to go there. You have to ask those questions of yourself. So anyways, thank you for listening to this long-winded video. Let me know if you like stuff about trading psychology, because this is really important stuff for me these days, and it's really what I'm focused on to improve my trading. Of course, still learning, still studying the charts and things, but I think from my own perspective, I've realized that I need to shift the balance of the psychology and the technical. I've spent too much on the technical, and it's making it actually harder to trade, because if you learn too much, you got too much going on up here. So anyways, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.